Well, good evening, ladies, gents, internet wanderers. This is The Sweat, where we cover all things fantasy sports. I am Brendan Glasheen. He is Reid Fowler. Mike Francesa is going to be on with us later, talking some baseball hot stove.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, very interesting. And we'll get right into tonight's NBA and NHL slates later on, but we're starting off with football like we do every night. Let's bring in our panel, DK Live's Jeff Ulrich and Steve Buchanan, and the fantasy girl herself, Rosalie Michaels. So we're going to start game of over or under. The Falcons and Packers have both been disappointing, to say the least, this season. Both teams are just 4 wins apiece. The line is set at 50.5. Rosalie, we'll start with you. Do you see Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan going back and forth in a shootout and putting up at least 51 points? What do you think?
I can't believe I'm actually saying this, given those two guys, right? We've had lots of great early games, especially with Matty Ice, but I'm going under here. You know, Green Bay right now, 16th ranked offense. They only have 4 games this season with over 25 points, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think about that. And their last 2 games with Arizona at home and Minnesota, you know, they scored very few points. So most points that they've had in an away game so far this year was 27, and that was against the Rams. And in a league where teams are regularly scoring in the 40s and sometimes the 50s, this is crazy that we're not seeing Green Bay score more points. And Atlanta, you know what, last 4 games, they haven't broken 20 points. The best things that these two teams have to go for them is that the opposing defenses aren't that good, but I still don't think they don't have enough to play for to make this a very exciting game. So I'm actually going under on this one.
Steve, we'll let Jeff hydrate before we go to him. What do you think?
I got to say, the only good thing about that past minute that Rosalie just had was her hair. It looks very nice. Other than that, I don't agree with anything that was just said. I mean, you have to remember, this game opened up at 48 points. The trend has been going up all week long since then. I just don't see how a game that doesn't exceed that total that has 2 banged-up secondaries. I mean, we have to remember, before Matt Ryan put up 8 DK fantasy points last week against the Ravens, 4 of his last 5 games, he put up at least 22 DK fantasy points and over 300 passing yards. Then we get a rejuvenated Aaron Rodgers in the post-McCarthy era here, and what he's going to do on the field there. I mean, even in the past 4 games, a QB hasn't exceeded more than 216 passing yards against the Falcons, and they're still giving up the second most DK fantasy points in the entire league. This is definitely an over.
Jeff, what do you think? Not about the hair, because we got 2 guys with no hair and Rosalie with amazing hair. So what do you think about this game?
I'm not going there. I'll let Steve take that one. Look, I am going to agree with Steve here. I mean, I've been touting angry Aaron Rodgers here all week, obviously, and I think the matchup is great for him to really come out and make an exclamation point. And I know some people are going to be, oh, it's cold, but Green Bay's performed well at home. I mean, they're just a good home team. And I mean, even with, you know, Mike McCarthy and their crappy offense, they've still scored over 30 points in 2 of their last 3 home games. I think it's 3 out of 6. They've scored 29 or more on the season. So they have been putting up points, and now there's going to have a little bit more free reign. And I just think Atlanta's a good opponent. I'm more worried about Atlanta in this situation, just putting up a dud, but I'll still take the over. I think Green Bay's defense is soft enough that Matt Ryan's going to be able to get it going for at least 20 points here. So I would take the over in the spot.
While Joe Flacco is listed as questionable, Lamar Jackson expected to make his 4th straight start for the Ravens. They face the Chiefs. And speaking of 51, does this game go over or under that total, Jeff?
I mean, it's very rare that I'd take the under in a Chiefs game. And I think some people might be getting scared off because it's Baltimore. But you know, Baltimore still plays at a fairly high pace, and I just don't think that Lamar Jackson's going to be able to do enough to really slow this Chiefs offense down. And by I mean do enough is keep them off the field. I take the over here. I mean, I think this is actually, as far as over-unders goes, it's probably one of my favorite spots. I don't think the Chiefs are going to have that much trouble scoring. I think Lamar Jackson could still get some stuff done in garbage time, or even if he keeps it close. But no, I do like the over in this spot, especially for the Chiefs offense.
Steve, this one getting to 51?
No. The problem is, if Jackson isn't rushing the ball, he's not generating a ton of offense. So let's take the last 3 weeks that he started. Let's take away the rushing production that he had. This is what Jackson would have ended up with in DK fantasy points. 4, 9.1, and 8. That's what he would have ended with if we take away all that rushing production. And I'm giving plenty of respect to this Ravens offense. We've only seen one quarterback throw for over 300 yards, Baker Mayfield of all people. Only one quarterback throw more than 2 touchdowns in a game. It doesn't feel like this is going to be a ton of high scoring like people might be giving this game credit for. If this is going to exceed that total, the Chiefs have to absolutely pour on the offense here because, again, Jackson isn't generating the offense through the air. It's all coming off of his legs. So I just don't see this one going over.
Rosalie, you under as well?
But Steve and I are just not on the same page today at all. And
I like the hair. The hair's good, though. I like the hair.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. But the hair is telling me. Now, he keeps talking about DK fantasy points, which is great. But what we're talking about here is the over-under, Who's going to score more points? Look at what Lamar has done under the 3 games that he's started for the Ravens. They've scored 26 points, 34 points, and 24 points. They are scoring actual points. So that's what we're looking for. The Chiefs D just gave up 33 points to the Raiders who have no offense whatsoever. So I think easily Baltimore scores. Are the Chiefs going to score too? Yeah, because they're still going up against the #1 defense, but they are the #1 offense as well. This easily goes over 51 points for me. I'm over.
Wish my hair could tell me, give me knowledge.
I don't.
You just got to blow it out. Blow it out.
Blow it out.
Oh,
yeah.
man, I do not want to wait around to see that. Yeah, I'm with Steve on that. Mitch Trubisky is set to start for the Bears at home against the Rams Sunday night. Is this game going over or under 51.5 points? Steve, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think this is going over here. I mean, even with 2 games without Mitch under center, this team is still averaging 28.7 points per game, which is the 5th highest in the league. Games that he's starting, they're just under 30 points per game. And then defensively, the Bears have been good, obviously, as of late, but they really haven't been tested lately. You look at the last 5 games they've played. They faced the Bills, the Lions, the Vikings, the Lions again, and the Giants. Not exactly teams that are going to push you to the limits defensively. Then obviously we know how dynamic the Rams offense is. So I think this is an easy one. You have to like the over in this one. Nothing more than a Mitch Jared Goff shootout there. If they have to sling the ball over and over and over, just going to get good things out of that, at least points-wise. So this is definitely an over for me.
Yeah, Jeff, what do you think? I mean, Talib, one defensive guy can't – well, maybe Aaron Donald can affect a game, but what do you think about this over-under 51.5?
Yeah, I guess I'm expecting a lot of points to be scored this week because I think I'm going to take the over here too. And it kind of echoes what Steve said. It's just it's a similar game to the Rams Chiefs. Maybe it's not quite as getting as much attention, but it's 2 of the best teams in the NFL. And it's 2 very quality offenses with 2 really more progressive play callers with Matt Nagy and Sean McVay and 2 very good quarterbacks, right? So all the elements are there for the offenses to go. I know Chicago's got a good defense, and I wouldn't be shocked if they did stop the Rams a little bit, but all they really need to do here is score 28 points, because I think Chicago is going to be able to score at least 24 points. So I think you could see a shootout. I think you could see both teams get in the 30s. The cold weather might be a little bit of a worry, and if it gets worse, that's something to think about. But at this point, I'd still take the over here. I just think these offenses are both too good. Quarterbacks are too good.
Yeah, Rosalie, 51.5. Obviously, Mitch coming back with that shoulder injury. What do you think here?
I think that Steve's hair must have been talking to him on this one, because I agree with him.
There we go.
Facial hair.
I'm going over here too. You know what? People forget. Yeah, we know the Rams are a high-powered offense, but the Chicago has scored the 5th most points in the NFL, so they're a great offense as well. They're scoring a lot of points. You know what? The defense can score too. They're #1 in the turnovers. Chicago D is really good, but they gave up 30 points to the Giants last week. So the Rams are going to score a lot of points. This game is in Chicago, so yeah, I'm interested to see how Goff does in the cold weather. But you look at Trubisky, he hasn't had a game with less than 24 points for Chicago since week 3 against the Cardinals. So this, for me, is an easy over.
Rosalie, can you remind us again what the name of your dog is?
Is Abby. Oh, God, that's terrible. That is Abby. Abby, you're embarrassing yourself right now.
Oh, maybe Abby's feeding you the takes here tonight. All right, we go from a really good game to a bad game. Cardinals have the worst offense in the league, and the Lions aren't much better. Line for this game is set at 40.5 points. So is anybody willing to take the over? Rosalie? Abby?
We are.
Oh, you're out of your mind.
Wait, you're not. You want the over? Explain yourself, please.
Hey, I am. You know what? 40 points is not a lot of points. And you know what? Yes, I get it. Yes, my Arizona Cardinals have the worst offense in the league. But you know what else these two teams have? Two of the worst defenses. So I think both of these first-year head coaches are going to be doing some risky things. They've got nothing to lose at this point. I think you're going to see a lot more offense in this game than these guys predict.
Jeff, you care to respond?
I could see a path for this game going over. I don't think it's the same one Rosalie has, but I just like the Lions a lot in this matchup. They played really well against the Rams, and I could see them putting up a lot of points. That all being said, I'm taking the under here, just because I think the law averages says that, the Detroit's one of the slower paced teams. Obviously, the Cardinals can't score points. It just speaks to like a 23-10 game or something like that. Even if the Lions do dominate, there's no guarantee they're going to put up a ton of points because they're just not an efficient offense. So I like the Lions here. I don't like the over, though. I just don't know how the Cardinals are going to score points. No Christian Kirk, a very banged-up O-line. Larry Fitzgerald, they just can't seem to get on the same page. I think the under here has got to be the play.
Steve, break the 1-1 tie for us.
Boy, 49 minutes and the show's over. Even if you combine the average amount of points per team that they score a week, you're not even reaching 40 and a half. You're not even reaching 38. I mean, it's really hard to like anybody in this matchup. David Johnson, maybe he's someone you might consider, but it's hard to like Stafford in this matchup here. I mean, Josh Rosen. I mean,
Lions defense.
I'm sure he's that too. But it's like Stafford and then Josh Rosen. I mean, he seems like a nice guy and everything. No, this is definitely an under. I mean, there's just no offense to be had in this game here. This feels like a nightmare.
I honestly thought Steve was going to shred Rosalie's take in that with all of the audibles in that when she was speaking about it. But we'll be hearing from this. Go ahead, Rosalie. What are you going to say?
He's too nice to me. But you know what? Sometimes the best offense is a really bad defense. So I'm just saying.
1 point for Rosalie. We'll be hearing from this trio throughout the night, obviously.
Steve agreed.
So you guys sit tight. 10-game slate in the NBA tonight. We'll break it down. But first, Los Angeles Chargers reporter Chris Hayre stops by the Sweat.
Carolyn Azak here, and I'm joined by Los Angeles Chargers team reporter Chris Hayre to get an inside look at the Chargers. Chris, how's it going?
Carolyn, how you doing?
Great. So let's get right into it. The Chargers coming off a comeback win against the Steelers on Sunday night. A lot of heroes in that game, but let's start with Phillip Rivers, who continues to play at a high level. Is it a stretch to say that this may be the best season of his career?
I don't think it's a stretch at all, Tara Lynn. I mean, just look at the landscape of the NFL right now. Phillip Rivers is the only quarterback in the league that has thrown multiple touchdown passes in every single game this year. And I don't think it's a stretch at all to say this is the best season of his career.
And the last time that we had you on, we talked about how Keenan Allen isn't seeing the amount of targets he did last season. Well, he tried to make up for it in that one game, seeing 19 targets that turned into 14 catches for 148 yards and a touchdown in LA's 33-30 win over the Steelers. Allen has been unstoppable over the last 5 weeks, but what was the catalyst for this dominant stretch?
He's just a dominant player, Terrell, and it was only a matter of time before he got rolling. Those 19 targets were a career high. The 14 catches were the second most in his career. And you look at weeks 10 to 13 in 2017, they're eerily similar to what he's been doing over this 4-week stretch. He has 4 touchdowns. He's been targeted a bunch of times, I think 47 times. So this is just a guy who's a dominant player. He's one of the best route runners in the league.
All right, so with Melvin Gordon out, everyone expected Austin Eckler to have a big game, but rookie Justin Jackson put up 63 yards and a touchdown. Even if Melvin Gordon does return this week, could Jackson be seeing more of a share in the offense?
I think it's possible. And right now we don't know the status of Melvin as we tape this, but let's say it's a committee situation with Eckler and Jackson. I certainly think you're going to see more carries for Jackson. They just couldn't really – it wasn't really Austin's fault in the first half. They just couldn't get the running game going. Justin Jackson, who you mentioned, he had all of his production in the second half, 82 total yards and a touchdown. And I think if you're playing DraftKings, if you're playing fantasy, and you have the choice between Austin and Justin, I don't think it's outside the realm of possibilities to play them both, because we talk about touches. Both guys can catch the ball out of the backfield. Both guys can make plays in the run game and the pass game.
Let's talk about Joey Bosa. He's been back for 3 weeks. What kind of impact has he made on the Chargers defense?
Yeah, a big one. A big one. He's been back for 3 weeks. And keep in mind, he was hurt in training camp. So this has been, 12, 13 weeks without playing football. He has 3 sacks in 3 games, and he's just going to make all 3 levels of the defense better.
Chargers are in a good spot this weekend. I know you're excited. They're hosting a banged-up Bengals. The Chargers are coming off a dramatic Sunday night win and are a week away from a matchup with the Chiefs in a game that could decide the division. It's Anthony Lynn's biggest job this week to make sure the Chargers don't overlook the Bengals.
I don't think so, because honestly, this team has done a remarkable job of, whether it's a win or loss, and luckily for the Chargers, it's been more wins than losses. But after a game, these guys can reset and focus on the next opponent. Although everybody outside the locker room is probably focused on that game Thursday against the Chiefs, best believe the Chargers are focused on the Bengals.
So the Rams clinched a playoff spot last week, and the Chargers have a clinching scenario this week. What are the odds of an all-LA Super Bowl, and what would that do for NFL football in LA?
I tell you what, it'd be fun. It'd be fun for the city of Los Angeles. 20-4 combined, the Chargers and Rams are this year. It's pretty remarkable. Both teams are playing well. I know that the 2 teams met in week 3 earlier in the year. It was a tough game. The Chargers dropped that one. But I tell you what, it would be good for the city. It would be awesome for the city. And it's just good to see both teams playing well. But the Chargers know they got to take care of business.
Finally, who do you think is in line for a big game for the Chargers versus the Bengals this weekend?
Well, I think a few guys you could talk about. Obviously, if you have Keenan Allen, you're starting Keenan Allen. This is a guy who has had a touchdown in 4 straight games, which is the most in his career in terms of consecutive games. Has a chance to go 5 in a row against the Bengals. I mentioned both guys in the backfield. I think both Justin Jackson and Austin Eckler, because both of them can make an impact not only in the run game, but the pass game as well.
Thanks for joining us, and good luck this weekend.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right, welcome back, Friday fans. Moving right along and right into the NBA with our panel, DK Live's Alex Racklin and Matt LaMarca from the Action Network. Thanks for joining us, guys. Let's get right into Price Check, and starting off with Russell Westbrook, who went off for 72 fantasy points 2 nights ago against the Nets. He's the priciest player on the board tonight against the Bulls. Is he worth paying for at 11-4, Alex? What do you think?
So I think the answer is sort of a reluctant yes. I think he is worth paying for. I think he's worth that price. But I'm still reluctant to actually roster him because I think he's unlikely to provide profitable value. I don't think he's going to hurt your roster at that salary, but he hasn't been putting together back-to-back great games this season. All of his games above 65 DKFP have been followed with a game far below that. So I think he's a good bet for 50-plus DKFP, which at that salary is pretty good. But I would still shy away from using him.
Matt, we got Drew Holiday at close to $3K cheaper, who did a bit of everything the other night. What are you thinking about Russ? Are you sharing that same reluctancy that Alex was talking about?
I'm definitely conflicted on Westbrook tonight because I do think it's a fair price. I just think that there are other superstars that are priced a little bit cheaper that can give you the same upside, if not more, particularly Giannis Antetokounmpo and Anthony Davis. I'm not so much worried about the fact that Westbrook hasn't followed up his big games with other big games this season. The Thunder have just been kind of blowing a lot of teams out this year. They've been, much better, I think, than most expected, particularly on the defensive end. So as long as this game stays close, I could definitely see Westbrook going for another 60-plus fantasy point performance. I just think I would rather invest in some of the other guys at the top of the spectrum.
So I'm not worried about a blowout, though. His minutes haven't been affected in blowouts. His minutes are almost identical, even in their double-digit wins.
Well, if you look at the 2 games prior to his Brooklyn monstrosity of a game, he had just under 29 minutes and 26 and a half. So, like, that's really the only reason I think he hasn't provided big value all season. He's still averaging 1.65 DraftKings points per minute over the past month. So it's really all about the minutes for me.
If only there was capability for you two to reach at each other through the split screen. All right, we'll stick with you, Matt. Yeah, no, you got nothing out of my co-host here. LeBron James put up 61 fantasy points against the Spurs. That was at Staples Center on Wednesday. He's going to face him again tonight, this time in San Antonio. Matt, do you like the price of $10,800 for LBJ?
I actually do think this is a pretty good price for him. Brandon Ingram is not going to play, and LeBron has been pretty drastically better with Ingram off the floor this season. He's seen the highest usage bump on the team. He's also had a nice little bump to his assist rate. And obviously this matchup versus the Spurs is pretty good. They've dropped all the way to 29th in defensive efficiency this season, which is pretty unheard of for a Greg Popovich team, but it's just kind of where they're at right now. So, yeah, I think we can definitely use LeBron in a good matchup.
Alex, we just showed the stats for LeBron in his career against the Spurs. Pretty good numbers. Your thoughts on James's price tag of $10,800?
Yeah, I agree. I'm in. I think that that's a solid price. And the Spurs defense, I mean, he was just hitting on this. They are dead last in defensive rating over the last 10 games. I don't think I've ever seen the Spurs at that side of the list. They're also they've also been way below average in rebound percentage. So while I don't know if LeBron's going to get 42 points again, I think more than 5 rebounds is totally reasonable, and I like him to get back up to close to those 61 DraftKings points he put up 2 nights ago.
Okay.
Alex, we'll stick with you. Kemba Walker has cooled off lately, not reaching 40 fantasy points in his last 4 games. Is he priced right at $8K against the Nuggets tonight? What do you think?
Yeah, he is priced right because I'm nervous about using him, but strongly considering it. His salary was almost $2,000 more 2 weeks ago today, the day after Thanksgiving. Normally, I'm all about that value, but he's in a bit of a shooting slump, shooting 35% over the last 6 games. So, you know, the nature of shooting slumps is he needs to snap out of that if he's going to provide value tonight. And the Nuggets have been one of the better defenses, so I'm not really confident that he will do that tonight.
So Matt, what are your thoughts on Kemba? If you like him, obviously give us points, but if you don't, who's a necessary pivot around that same price tag?
Yeah, I think Kemba's a nice target for tournaments. You know, he's going to have pretty minimal ownership. The Nuggets are a tough matchup defensively. They've been pretty good against point guards this year, but Walker's still going to get the usage. You know, like he is that team. He pretty much is the engine. I don't know any other parts of a train, but he's the whole train. He's the whole train for the Hornets. The big thing is he's made just 3 of 23 3-pointers over his past 4 games. So he was shooting more volume and obviously making more threes at the beginning of the season. If he can get back to that, he's going to eventually be a really nice value at this salary. I do hesitate to play him. I think on the other side of the same matchup, Jamal Murray is in a better spot. He's only 7,100. I think he's a really nice cash game type option just because the Nuggets are a little shorthanded right now.
All right, Matt and Alex, we'll get back to you guys for Bucks Warriors showdown later on. Up next, we're going to cover top NFL storylines.
I'm Taryn Azak, and with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash, previewing tonight's NBA showdown contest between 2 of the most explosive teams in the league, the Golden State Warriors and the Milwaukee Bucks. The Warriors have won 5 of their last 7 games and are gunning for a 3rd straight victory. Steph Curry has added a spark since returning, but the Warriors will be without Draymond Green tonight because of a toe injury, which could be a problem for the Warriors' D. The Bucks are coming off a 115-92 home win against the Detroit Pistons, but have lost 2 of their last 4 games and are trying to prove they belong with the best teams in the league. And let's not forget, over a month ago, the Milwaukee Bucks handed the Warriors one of their worst losses of the season. As for who you might want to roster tonight, let's talk about the team's leaders. The Bucks, led by Giannis, the Greek Freak, scoring 27 points per game, pulling down 13 rebounds per game and dishing 6 assists per game for an average of 57.1 fantasy points per game. Giannis will cost you $20,100 as a captain or $13,400 as a flex in tonight's contest. For the Warriors, Kevin Durant leads the team, scoring 29.8 points per game, grabbing 7.8 rebounds per game, and with 6.3 assists per game. Durant is averaging 52.9 DK points a game and comes in at $18,000 as a captain or $12,000 as a flex. Golden State is out for revenge and are looking to pull off an upset against the Deer in Milwaukee tonight. Tip-off is set for 9:30.
All right, bringing back the amazing Rosalie Michaels, the fantasy girl herself, and DK Live's odd couple, Steve Buchanan and Jeff Ulrich. Ladies and gents, we are going right into NFL Spin Move, where we put a fantasy spin on today's NFL headlines.
Jeff trying to warm up before the segment there. Guys, everybody was on Leonard Fournette last night. I saw Steve barking about this on Twitter last night, just couldn't get the right lineup out there. The real star running back was Derrick Henry, who went off for 238 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, but that's really only been his good game this entire season. Will you trust him again this week, against the Giants, Steve? Or next week?
You're pretty in tune with my Twitter feed. I think you get alerts sent to your phone.
Hey,
this is kind of like when Isaiah Crowell blew up for 219 yards against the Broncos. Everyone's like, "Oh, you got to play him next week." Why? He's still Isaiah Crowell. I mean, it took Crowell for his, for what happened. It took him 7 weeks to exceed that yardage total that he had in that game. So it just goes to show you the type of player he is. I mean, Henry's good for these monster games every once in a while. But this is someone that prior to last night hadn't seen more than 12 carries in a game, and last night he had 17. It's hard to think that he's going to keep getting that type of production every week. Now, he's in a pretty good matchup against the Giants next week, but I'll let everybody else get excited about that, because when he ends up busting next week against the Giants, everyone's going to remember, oh, that's right, that's who Derrick Henry actually really is. So forget it, not playing him.
Everyone's going to remember that Steve Buchanan warned you. Jeff?
You got it.
I was going to try and make it through this whole show without making fun of Reid's shirt, but I guess...
Oh, me too!
It's fine. It's
fine. Jeff's
trying to bring a little culture.
Now they want to start. Jeff's wearing his Colts fanboy shirt today.
Look, hey, I got my Giants shirt on. We're talking about the Giants. So, like any other opponent, I'd probably be just saying, yeah, just let the masses play Derrick Henry. But the Jordan Howard, who's basically running with a piano on his back these days, went off for 76 yards on 16 carries last week. Derrick Henry is basically a piano with rockets attached to his back right now. So, yeah, I do think he's going to have a big day. The Giants' run defense is awful. 149 yards to Adrian Peterson, over 100 yards to Matt Breida. Peyton Barber went for over 100 yards. This is a really good spot for Derrick Henry, who's actually his usage has been increasing a little bit as the games have gone on here for Tennessee. They are making a bit more of a switch to like a Henry-based offense over just using Dion Lewis. So looking ahead, I actually like the matchup for Derrick Henry. I hate to say it because Steve's right. He does let us down, it seems like, after these big games, but I'll probably have some exposure.
Rosalie, do you trust Derrick Henry next week against the Giants?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Steve here. To trust him is just... Did Reid just boo Steve? Or did Jeff?
No.
I'm booing you.
You're booing me? Listen, you know what? The guy has been averaging 54 rushing yards per game. Last night was an epiphany. I keep thinking of Jordan Howard with a piano on his back now, though. But here's where I think that it might get a little tricky. If you watched last night and you watched how Vrabel was reacting to this whole thing, I think if this was another home game, I think Vrabel winds him up and lets him go. The crowd was cheering every time Derrick Henry stepped foot on that field. But this is going to take place in Giants Stadium. So I don't know. I think it could be a good play depending on pricing. And if you want to get really tricky and see, I don't think anybody's going to really chase this because everybody sees it as an outlier and not a consistent thing. So yeah, I'm fading it. I don't think he does it again. It's a great matchup, but I don't think he gets the consistency he would need to do it.
Jeff, we mentioned that Fournette disappeared last night, and so did Cody Kessler. I don't think anyone was really waiting for him to show up. But the rest of the Jags offense was also very bad. Now we're hearing rumors that they're ready to move on completely from him. What do you think, if anyone, on that Jags offense is worth rostering going forward? In the receivers, obviously, Fournette is someone that we always like to talk about. What do you think? No.
Look, this is the Jaguars' next two opponents, Washington and Miami. Like, two of the slowest paced teams in the league. The game totals are probably going to be under 40 there. I don't know, even Fournette, he's priced like in the 6K range. You just might as well just pay up for a running back and a good offense. No, you should not touch this team at all. This is these guys are just playing out the string. Maybe week 17, if they get, I don't know, maybe they'll throw Carlos Hyde in a quarterback or something crazy like that.
Doug.
But no, this is just no. There's honestly, there's nothing to touch here. You should not roster a Jaguar.
Steve, they're moving on from Bortles, obviously not Kessler. Kessler looks like the better quarterback.
They need Kessler right now.
Obviously. So what do you think here? Anyone on that roster worth a spot on your roster?
I mean, it's not like they really have any juicy matchups coming up either. You're going to face the Redskins, the Dolphins, and the Texans. If there's anything they need to work on, they need to figure out how to tackle, maybe lift a couple weights, because that's half the reason why Derrick Henry had as big as a game as he had last week, because they couldn't tackle him, and then when they did tackle him, they couldn't even take him down. I mean, last week probably, let's say this, last week probably wasn't the best game to judge their offense in, because the Titans have a pretty good defense.
No, it is a good game to judge their offense in, because they had garbage time. They had prevent defense the whole game. And what did they put up? 9 points? They're terrible. They're just terrible.
There we go.
All right, go to Rosalie. I'm done again.
All right, Rosalie, what do you think?
I don't know how I can say no any differently than these two guys did. But they've given up on themselves. Why would I want anything to do with them? You know what? They've had 5 games under 10 points this year. That's pitiful, terrible. And the only one really trying to do anything is Ramsey, and that's just overacting. So I'm not interested in anything the Jaguars have to do. And the only reason Derrick Henry got that long touchdown, though, Steve, was because he almost ripped a guy's face off. So.
Yeah, that was definitely a face mask, too. That was so blatantly a face mask. Holy crap.
You guys are unhappy about the tackling. Wait till you hear what Mike Francesa said. That's coming up later.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
There's a tease.
In his own segment.
What a
Sammy
tease.
Watkins has reportedly re-injured his foot in practice and is expected to miss 4 to 6 weeks. Chiefs have already made a replacement with Kelvin Benjamin, who signed yesterday. Benjamin not expected to be active this week, but do you like his chances to make an impact on this team at some point, Rosalie?
I'm taking issue with the word replacement here, because that's not what Kelvin Benjamin is for Sammy Watkins at all. You know what? This is a guy who has forgotten how to catch the ball. He was released from one of the worst offenses in the league. And you know what? He's not active this week, but no. To me, he's just a body on the field that they're going to use in case somebody else goes down. Chris Conley, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Charkandrick West, and Spencer Ware, those are all the people that are going to be touching the ball. Kelvin Benjamin, not touching the ball.
How about you, Steve? Any chance he makes an impact?
I mean, the Chiefs don't need him. I mean, they're just like, yeah, what the heck? Come on over here. We'll make your life a little bit better than being on the Bills. I mean, but like Rosalie said, let's not forget, this is a guy who's only caught 33% of his targets all year. He had 62 targets on the year. He only got 23 of them, has 1 touchdown. Hey, enjoy it, kid. You made it on a good team. Your year is going to be better than what it was. Ride it while you can. But, I mean, truly, they don't need him at all. Like, he's just a body there. So maybe he'll help in garbage time in week 17, but really nothing left.
Jeff, anything to expect out of Kelvin Benjamin?
Look, I don't think he's going to become an integral part of the offense. He's not taking over the Chris Conley role. Chris Conley's just far better. But I'll say this. The Chiefs are good at using these peripheral guys. Like you said, Demetrius Harris pop up for their backup tight end, pop up for a touchdown. In the playoffs or something like that, in a certain situation, I could see Kelvin Benjamin getting deployed on a play or two and Patrick Mahomes hitting him for a big play. Look, good quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes make bad players look really good sometimes. And I could see that happening in a play or two with Benjamin. He's still got big size. He was still useful a couple seasons ago. I'm not saying he's coming in and hitting like a 100-yard game or something, but at some point, don't be shocked if you see him pop up with like a big play.
All right, guys, stay put. We need you for one more segment, and we're jumping right into my favorite segment. We're talking NHL on tonight's 4-game slate with our hockey expert, Sean Newsham. Sean, we're going to need you to pick your favorite plays in tonight's game between a couple of names at the same position. First off, at centerman, we have Connor McDavid at the top, priced at $8,100 against the Wild. After him, that price drops significantly to $7,400 for Mark Scheifele. Against the Blues, are you spending up for McDavid, or where are you going here?
For the top end of the center position, I think I am going to pay for Connor McDavid tonight. He did have a little bit of a sickness this week and missed a game, but he was able to return Wednesday and was able to play 28 minutes. So it was clearly just a one-game type of thing. But that said, Mark Scheifele is a fantastic play too. Both of them are in decent spots. Scheifele's spot is a little bit better. McDavid's just more of an elite talent. McDavid's in the 99th percentile in center to Corsi expectations for the night. So I think for me at the top end, I would prefer Connor McDavid, but Scheifele is a very good option as well.
Hey, Sean, next up at wing, we've got Patrick Laine for $7,500 against the Blues, or just a little cheaper, Alexander Radulov for $7,300 against the Sharks. Who's the better play here, since they're pretty similarly priced? Still didn't say it right. I can say the names, but not the word similar.
You got the name. That's really all that matters.
Yeah,
so.
Thanks, Sean.
But, yeah, for me, I'm going to get my Winnipeg exposure right here. Patrick Laine is just a better option than Alexander Radulov. If you look over the last 10 games, Alexander Radulov only has 1 goal in his last 8, and he has not eclipsed 4 shots more than 1 time in those 8 games as well. So when we look at the spot for Winnipeg tonight, it's very solid, and Patrick Laine is the main goal scorer for that team. He's cooled off a little bit since his 5-goal game the other night, but he's still a better option for me than Alexander Radulov today.
All right, next up, Brent Burns is the highest-priced defenseman at $6,500 against the Stars, and just under him, Oscar Klefbom for $5,900 against the Wild. Who are you picking out of these two, Sean? What do you think?
So this is a bit shocking to me, but I'm going to go with Oscar Klefbom. Brent Burns has basically been a plug-and-play for the last few seasons, but it's just not there this year. What Oscar Klefbom's been doing, especially recently, is been very solid. Not necessarily in the goal-scoring assisting department. However, his block shot numbers are fantastic. He's averaging just under 3 block shots per game, as well as over 3 shots per game. So his floor is a very solid option. So if I'm looking at a cash game defenseman tonight, I think Oscar Klefbom is a better option than Brent Burns.
All right, Sean, we always like to get your thoughts on goalie, of course, to take us home here. We've got Connor Hellebuck for $8,400 against the Blues. The next guy we know who's in net is Cam Talbot at $7,900 going up for the Wild tonight, against the Wild tonight. So who are you playing in goal tonight?
For me in goal, I'm going to look at Connor Hellebuck. Winnipeg is just the biggest favorite on the night, and it's not really close between all the other teams. Winnipeg is a -200 favorite, and no one else really gets in the same area code as that. So for me, I would much rather go with the biggest favorite on the slate and play Connor Hellebuck.
All right, Sean, thank you very much. We appreciate your time as always. We got NBA coming up next, but before we do so, Mike Francesa joined us, and, you know, he wasn't all that impressed with the Jaguars tackling either last night. It's a Friday sweat, which means WFAN host Mike Francesa joins us. Always a pleasure, Mike. Want to start with...
Thank you.
No problem.
Good to talk to you. What's going on?
Want to start with last night's football game. We'll get to Derrick Henry's 99-yard run in a second. But on the Jaguars side, is Doug Marrone the right coach going forward? We saw what happened a few years ago in Buffalo when he bolted.
I don't think this is a Marrone issue. I really don't. I think this is a case of what you see in the NFL. The difference between winning and losing is very, very small. And this is a team that lost Fournette in week 1, lost offensive linemen and tight ends, which is what was the basis of their offense. It put pressure on their quarterback who folded. The defense started to get mad at the offense, and then they had a bunch of clubhouse lawyers led by Ramsey in that room who destroyed the culture in that room. and the team completely quit on itself. That is exactly what happened. And you saw it on the 99-yard play. Nice tackling. This is the team that was the best defense in the league. How many guys missed tackles on that play? I mean, my God, that was the worst 99-yard run I ever saw.
Well, let's get to that Derrick Henry 99-yard run. You weren't that impressed with it. I don't think many people were.
No, I wasn't, because he should have been stopped 4 different times.
Right. So was that the most out of left field run as far as just Henry's performance all in all? He hasn't done anything all year.
He had a good night. I'm not knocking him. I mean, the bottom line is he should have been tackled about 4 different times. I mean, my God. I mean, they had him stopped a couple of times on the run. I mean, it's amazing. He kept going because none of them, the efforts they gave on defense were ridiculously bad. Half of them didn't even chase him down.
All right, let's go to baseball, Mike. Red Sox and Nathan Eovaldi agreed to a 4-year, $68 million contract. Two-part question here for you. Was it a smart move by Boston, number one? And number two, should the Yankees have pushed a bit harder to maybe snag him from their division rival?
Yes and yes. It was a smart move. It wasn't a smart move. It was a brilliant move. To me, he got basically about $40 million less than he's worth. Secondly, the Yankees absolutely should have been in on him. They need another pitcher. I think they'll re-sign Happ. They might not get the other pitcher now until after opening day. They have enough pitching to start the season. They have left-handed pitching now, which I like. But, yes, I thought Eovaldi was an absolute steal.
Generally speaking, the Yankees have been pretty quiet this offseason, right? I mean, they've been in rumors for Corey Kluber, Bumgarner, as you mentioned.
Beware.
What's
when
that?
The Yankees are quiet, they're not quiet for long. Beware. I think something big's coming.
What's that?
One of the mega signings, I think, will probably happen. I don't want it to happen, but I think it will happen.
So you believe there will be a move down the road here for the New York Yankees?
I think the Yankees will sign Machado or Harper.
Last Friday, Adam Kaufman brought up the New York Mets and the rumors of getting Edwin Diaz and Robinson Cano. That is now a done deal. They get the all-star closer. They get the former Yankee. Your knee-jerk reaction earlier in the week when the deal got done?
You know, it's not a bad deal, and especially giving up bad contracts. It was not a big deal economically. The prospects that everyone's going crazy about that they gave up is a position player. The Mets produce position players that are good about every 20 years. So I would not get hung up on Met position players. That's not what they produce. They've never produced position players. So from that standpoint, I think short-term it helps the Mets. It gives the Mets 2 good players. There's no question. I don't know how much Robinson Cano's got left in the tank. I'll have to see that. I don't know how motivated he'll be as a Met. I have to see that. So I know Robinson Cano very well. He is a terrific player. He also has been a party boy. Maybe that's changed now that he's 36. But he does play every game. The question is, he's a middle infielder who's already played over 2,000 games, coming off a year where he was hit with a drug that was used to mask other drugs. That scares you.
Let's stay in the NL East. Patrick Corbin goes to the Nationals. Do you believe in the Nats? Does that make them the powerhouse again as far as rotation in the National League East?
No. It just replaces what they lost, and I think they overpaid by about $40 million. I thought the contract was ridiculous. No, I think they're headed in the wrong direction, the Nationals. I think the Braves are really good. They're the team to beat. Clearly, the Phillies owner is going to make a big play. He's going to make the biggest offer to Harper. The question is, will Harper take the most money? If he takes the most money, he'll be in Philadelphia.
All right, hot stove is brewing. Mike Francesa of WFAN. He's going to join us on Sunday to break down the NFL slate. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Mike Francesa. He'll be sweating with us on Sunday as well to discuss Week 14 in the NFL. But enough football. Our NBA duo returns. DK Live's Alex Reclean and the Action Network's Matt LaMarca talking the late showdown contest. Bucks host the Warriors.
Fellas, Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to cost you $20,100 in the captain slot. Whole lot of cash there, so how are you approaching the Greek Freak? Captain, flex, fading him against Golden State? Matt, where are you going with this?
Certainly can't put him in the captain spot, in my opinion. There's just not a lot of value on this slate. It's hard to find role players with upside. There's really not like the 1 or 2K type guy that you can even reliably plug in. So I think your best case scenario, if you want to use him, is to use him as a utility. but I don't think you necessarily even need to do that. I kind of like the Golden State side a little bit more in this matchup because I think they're going to be a little motivated after Milwaukee laid the smackdown on them the first time they played. So I might be more likely to use the Steph Curry, Kevin Durant types than Giannis.
Alex, yeah, Giannis had 48.3 DK points against the Warriors. That was earlier this year at Oracle. Your take on this game for Giannis tonight?
The takeaway is the same. I think that he is not a captain option, but definitely a flexor utility option. I got there a little bit through a different path. The Warriors defense hasn't been that fantastic over the last couple of days. You know, they've not been the same defense with Draymond out, and Giannis does have 62 DKFB over his last 5. So that's a pretty solid floor, and I think he gets up for these games. But I think that there are better options elsewhere for the captain spot.
Alex, staying with you, Steph Curry went off for 69 points 2 nights ago at the Cavs. Do you like Steph more than KD tonight?
Not only do I like him more than KD tonight, but I also think he is a captain option. He's been back for 3 games. He had 3 threes in the first game, 6 threes in the second, 9 in the third. So obviously he's going to score 12 three-pointers tonight. He's just been fantastic, and I think he's going to continue rolling. He's fantastic. Steph Curry's the best.
Matt, what do you think?
Oh, I'm excited for next week now when we get 18, 21, and 24 three-pointers from him. I agree. I think Steph Curry is the preferred option of the two. He does everything for the Warriors. Like the numbers with him off the floor are just so drastically different from what we've seen with the Warriors with him on the floor. I mean, he's the best player ever in terms of the most important skill in the league right now, which is shooting. So I prefer him to Durant. I think that he has the better ceiling of the two.
Hey, we should probably mention the Bucks made a trade like a half hour ago.
They did.
They got George Hill from the Cavaliers. That's something we should probably bring up, but it's not going to affect tonight's game because how in the heck are they going to get to Milwaukee like that? I mean, they could, hypothetically. So George Hill's on the way, but that doesn't change the backcourt we're going to talk about right now. Eric Bledsoe, Chris Middleton are both averaging 34 fantasy points, but Bledsoe is going to cost you $400 more. Is he the better Buck to roster than Middleton, Matt?
Yeah, first of all, I don't know how the Cavs got a first-round pick for George Hill, which I think I saw was part of the trade. That's pretty crazy considering.
Dude, that was George Hill on the highway trying to get to Milwaukee. He's blowing by you there.
But to answer your question, I do prefer Bledsoe for $400 more. Middleton is going to be playing his first game after missing a couple. I think he could be somewhat limited here. So, yeah, I think Bledsoe is just a little bit safer option and has the better individual matchup against Steph Curry.
Alex, do you like the Bucks backcourt, and which of these two are you putting in your lineup or you're suggesting?
So I agree that Bledsoe's the better option. I like coming off back-to-back 27-point games, but I'm actually more intrigued by Malcolm Brogdon with 34 and a half DraftKings points over his last 5. All the way down at 7,000. I mean, he's the next most expensive Buck. But I think that there's a lot more value there, and he's sort of the other one along with Curry, who I'm considering as a potential captain.
Hey, Alex, don't think I haven't noticed that you flipped that jersey around. I like that production value, my man. I appreciate that. So,
I like your shirt, Reid. Don't listen to the football people. They don't know what they're talking about.
A man with taste. Anyway, we'll talk about that after the show. Hey, Alex, we'll stick with you. Where can we find some value in this contest tonight?
So for the slate overall, I got a couple of names to sort of rattle off. Darren Collison at 6,600, Josh Jackson at 5,500. That's assuming that at least one or if not both of TJ Warren or Devin Booker remain out. I don't think we've seen official designations for them yet. Assuming one of them stays out, then I'm still interested in Josh Jackson. I like the idea of a Doug McDermott bounce back game all the way down at 3,400, or Tyson Chandler in that Lakers Spurs game we were talking about earlier for 3,600. I like all 4 of those guys a lot.
Matt, where's some value that we can look at in tonight's slate?
Well, I won't duck the question like Alex. I'll address the game that we're actually talking about.
I thought we were talking about the main slate. Did I?
The showdown. It's okay. It's okay.
I think you can definitely look at Kevon Looney at 5,200. He's probably my favorite value option on the slate. But like I was saying earlier, it's just tough to find cheap players in this game that I think can produce value. You can go with Iguodala at 3,600, but he hasn't really demonstrated any sort of a ceiling recently. Jordan Bell at 2,800, I guess, is intriguing. Considering that the Warriors are still shorthanded in their front court. And then on the Bucks side, I kind of like Pat Connaughton at 4K. But yeah, it's tough. It's really tough to find value, guys, which is why I think you might want to go a little bit cheaper at the captain spot tonight.
Yeah, no Matthew Dellavedova or John Henson because those guys are in the deal for George Hill. Slate approved for this showdown between the Bucks and the Warriors, Matt.
I'm going to go with Kevon Looney. I think that in terms of just points per dollar, he might be the best value on the slate.
Alex?
I thought we were... I didn't understand we were staying with the showdown. I was so excited to talk about Kyle O'Quinn. I think I'm going with Brogdon.
Yeah, you were pretty high on him, so yeah.
Very nice.
You're
we'll
fine. Way to
up
improvise.
With the NFL Chase Fade next. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Carolyn Azak in with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. It's only been 2 days since being released by the Buffalo Bills, and Kelvin Benjamin already has a new team. Benjamin has signed a one-year deal with the Kansas City Chiefs. The 27-year-old wide receiver was released by the Bills earlier this week after trading for him just over a year ago, and he cleared waivers on Wednesday. He was a major disappointment after the Bills traded 2 draft picks for the former first-rounder last season. Benjamin caught only 23 passes for 354 yards and a touchdown in 12 games this year. Kansas City is looking for Benjamin to fill the void and add some depth, with them just having recently released one of their top offensive threats in running backs Kareem Hunt and wide receiver Sammy Watkins dealing with a sore foot. Benjamin wants to put his horrible stint with the Bills in the past and get his career back on track with Super Bowl contender Chiefs. It's doubtful that he'll play much this week, just days after joining the team, but Benjamin Price is in at $3,400 this week.
Weekend's almost here, for us anyway. Football crew is going to play Chase or Fade with us for player point projections. Sunday's games in the NFL, that's what we're going for here. The Fantasy Girl, Rosalie Michaels, plus Jeff Ulrich and Steve Buchanan from DK Live.
Yeah, we touch on the Patriots' history of struggling down in Miami this week. Just talking this season, Tom Brady hasn't notched 20 fantasy points in 5 straight games. Chase or Fade, Brady eclipses 20 points against the Dolphins Sunday. Rosalie.
I'm actually chasing this. Yeah, you know what? Miami, when you look at last year's game, it was the only game in December that the Patriots lost last year. But Miami's D is giving up the 3rd most fantasy points to QBs over the past 4 weeks. And Brady's averaging on the year over 19 fantasy points. I think this is something where he comes around. It seems like December is the time when the Patriots finally kind of really turn on the gas and start being the Patriots that we expect as they start pushing for that first round bye. So I think he goes over 20, not much over 20, but I think he goes over 20.
Jeff, do you think Brady shreds this Miami defense? What are your thoughts?
Oh, well, this is there we go. Okay,
fourth wall. We just broke it. The fourth wall, my man.
Okay. I was getting scared. My reflection was weird. Okay. No, I mean, I do. I actually kind of like the spot for Brady. I mean, the Dolphins are going to be without Xavier Howard, their top cornerback for this game. Brady's thrown for at least 3 touchdowns in 3 of his last 4 games against Miami. And I just think with Gronk healthy, it's a pretty good spot for maybe Gronk to get back on track too. I think Brady could find enough cheap touchdowns here to get over that 20 fantasy points. So I do kind of like him this week. Maybe not my favorite play, but he's definitely in play at 5,800.
Steve, are you afraid to chase or fade Tom Brady? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm afraid of nothing. Look, I mean, he's barely missed the mark the last 2 weeks. I mean, honestly, a few more passing yards in both of those games, and he's pretty much there. Originally, I wasn't really a big fan of him, but with the news that Xavier Howard is out, got to start to like that a little bit more. I mean, the way to beat the Dolphins has always been on the ground. I mean, they've allowed over 100 rushing yards 8 times already this season. They can't stop running backs catching out of the backfield. But with Xavier Howard out, I mean, that just gives so many opportunities now to Josh Gordon. And that's a cheap way for Brady to rack up those fantasy points. And just to mention, too, these guys mentioned Gronkowski. I mean, he's been almost a complete non-factor already this season. But when have you been able to get a Brady Gronk stack that's only 10,600? That's so unbelievably cheap that it's almost unheard of on how cheap that is, thinking of years past. So I think he's a great GPP option, especially with with Gordon in the lineup too. So I think he does make it there now.
Yeah, there was a story today in Boston that the Brady-Josh Gordon story, that they're really coming along. Brady's been a big influence. Let's go to Spencer Ware. He didn't pan out so well last week when he took over lead running back duties for the Chiefs. Ware's going to have another poor performance this week, this time against the Ravens. Chase or fade that, Jeff?
I'm gonna fade this, which means I guess I'm chasing Spencer Ware for a big game here. Look, I think the Chiefs are trying to bring Spencer Ware along a little bit slow. I mean, he's going to be their lead back, and they obviously got Damian Williams involved a little bit. But I like the spot for Kansas City. They're at home this week. Baltimore's run defense is okay, but it's not the greatest. I mean, they've allowed 6 touchdowns to the running back position over their last 6 games. And I do feel like the Chiefs defense might be able to shut down Lamar Jackson, give Ware a lot of red zone looks in this game. So I'm going to fade that Ware is going to disappoint again. I think he's actually going to come through with a good game here.
Steve, Ware going to not play well again this week?
I'm not going back to that well this week. I mean, he gets a $1,200 bump in salary first off, and now he faces, I think Jeff's, undermining this defense here. They're one of the best run defenses in the league. I mean, Ware had a good matchup last week against the Raiders, and he didn't perform well. He didn't look that good in that matchup either. Charkandic West is in the mix there. I don't know how much they're going to use him here in this, but I just don't feel great about this whole situation for Ware. I mean, I know he's still pretty cheap on the week, but I think we do have some cheaper options at running back that we can consider in better matchups. So I definitely get the appeal with Ware, but I just don't feel like the Baltimore defense is one I want to attack this week, so I'm going to fade that one.
Rosalie, break the tie. Chase or fade?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with Steve here, which is that I guess you're chasing the fact that he's not going to do as well, right?
There it is.
So, I mean, I don't hate Ware at all. I like him. I remember, a few years ago when he was the lead back, he put up some great fantasy points. But I don't like him this week. Baltimore is so good against the run. Jeff was saying, they let up 6 touchdowns. But you know what? They've let up the 3rd least fantasy points to running backs over the past 4 weeks.
Yeah,
that's
Jeff.
not enough for me.
How good can the Ravens be? They're named after an Edgar Allan Poe poem. I mean, come on.
Nice.
All right, it's a Friday. Moving on, Amari Cooper reeled in all 8 of his targets last Thursday night in the Cowboys' big upset over the Saints. Cooper puts up at least 100 yards against the Eagles. Chase or fade that, Steve? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen him go over 100 yards 3 times already this season. He got 6 of his 10 targets for his Philly earlier in the year for 75 yards. He's going to see a decent amount of Sidney Jones in coverage this time around as well. And he's just been a huge liability for the Eagles. But then again, what cornerback hasn't been a massive liability for them this season? I don't think it's crazy for him to exceed that mark. I mean, the Cowboys are favored in this one. I think the Cowboys are going to absolutely run away with this game. You have to like Cooper in this spot. So I think it's definitely obtainable. Against his secondary, anything is possible. I could get 100 yards against his secondary.
Well, Rosalie, do you think Cooper shreds this secondary? What do you think?
I'm chasing Steve getting 100 yards against the Philly defense.
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with him. I chase this. You know what? Dallas has caught fire with Cooper. And he's clearly the favorite target of Dak Prescott. And he's targeted almost a quarter of the routes that he runs. And he lines up on the outside 76% of his routes this season. And that's going against a defense that allows the 2nd most fantasy points to the perimeter receivers, allowing over half a fantasy point a route. Yeah, give me some Cooper.
Jeff, all we got time for is just one answer again with that 4th wall. What do you think? 60 seconds less. One answer. What do you got?
There I am. Jeez. Losing me in cyberspace here, guys. As bad as the Eagles secondary has been, they've only allowed one 100-yard receiver in 6 of their last 7 games. So, 100-yard receiver in their last 7 games. So I just think the odds suggest it's not going to happen. I think it's too easy for the Eagles to just sort of double cover Cooper, make the Cowboys beat them with their other receiving options. So I'll fade that he hits 100 yards.
All right, guys, have a good weekend. We'll see you Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
We got along pretty good tonight. You'll be with those guys Sunday.
I will.
Right?
11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Obviously, you can find it everywhere. YouTube, Twitter. Well, what'd you learn? We got 30 seconds.
What I learned?
Yeah.
Well, if I grew out my hair a little bit more, perhaps more knowledge would come to me.
And the English language, or what?
Yeah. Well, my NHL pronunciation guide was terrific for our segment tonight. The only issue was I couldn't say the word similarly. There it is. See you guys at 11:30 to 1 o'clock before kickoff Sunday. Bye, Reid. He already left.